Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in to TD Talks. Today is May 9th, 2025, and I have to be quiet. So turn that volume up if you have to. I got to be quiet. It's the only time I can record TD Talks now in this new lifestyle we're in, which I love, which is the two under two lifestyle, because the only time I can record this stuff is during the dual nap time, the simultaneous nap time when both babies are down for nap. So I got to do what I got to do, but we're going to make it work. Couple things to cover today. Number one, baby Harper. Baby number two, our little daughter. She's doing awesome. She had her 2 week doctor appointment today. So I appreciate all the friends and family and clients who've reached out to ask how she's doing and everything. She's doing awesome. Had her 2 week appointment. The doctor said she was perfect, which I didn't need him to tell me that. I already knew. I already knew she was perfect and doing amazing. So she's doing great. Big brother Harrison is taking his role very seriously. He loves his role as big brother. He he's the official milk and pacifier deliverer of our house. And if you happen to accidentally make a big mistake and try to do that job for him, uh, you will be cussed in toddler language. We have no idea what he's saying, but he's not happy about it. So just don't get in his way. Okay. Can't do it. Can't take his job. He doesn't like it. So, a couple things to cover here today on TD Talks as far as market commentary goes. So, we've seen some positive moves in the market here this week. Um, I think a lot of it's driven by the optimistic talking points that have come out about trade deals that we're seeing now with the UK and potentially starting these negotiations to get a deal done with China. Um, the UK, I think, is a big one because they're our biggest ally, and to see some sort of deal being put together and that being announced from the White House, I think drove a lot of optimism in the market, and we saw all the major indices go up this week. Nasdaq, Dow, S&P, all up. Some point 0.3, some a full percent, some 0.6, which I think is moving things in the positive direction. I still don't think there's enough of a focus from our government leadership on inflation and cost. I'd like to see far more focus on that. I think seeing those numbers play out a little bit better would give a lot more people more confidence in the market. So we'll kind of see where things head in that direction. But most of the consumer price index details and data points look pretty good, but still costs are outpacing the rise in income, and that's not good for the individual or for the family, for the American family. So we'd like to see that improve. I will say this about the trade deal with China. I don't think there's a better representative that the White House could send than Scott Bessent. I think he is probably the most knowledgeable and substantive cabinet member just from a economic perspective, which makes sense why he's the Treasury Secretary. But just looking at his career and then watching him handle this new role, his first role in government, um, doing it really, really well. Everything from press conferences to congressional hearings and all the rest. He seems to be very even keel, level headed, and very smart. He's actually pretty funny too. So he's got kind of a sly sense of humor, which I like. And so I'm excited to see what he can kind of drum up in his trip to China this weekend. Supposedly it's happening this weekend. So if we get some good news from that over the weekend or going into Monday or something like that, we could see potentially another pop in the market. In my opinion, I think that's how things are going to play out. I don't see him going over there with the intent of blowing anything up unless China just doesn't want to play ball and wants to maintain this very unfair relationship that they have with the United States and frankly with a lot of the rest of the world. But the rest of the world doesn't really have the power, the leverage to stand up to them. So we'll kind of see how things play out. But I think if a good trade deal, which would make things more balanced and fair for the United States, is going to be good for the rest of the world because China's kind of on an island the way that they've behaved with these tariffs, which, in my opinion, have been needed. Another big piece of news that I wanted to talk about was Warren Buffett retiring, which, eventually people either retire, they just die in their job. But with somebody like him, he's just been around so long. Um, it was, kind of caught me off guard to see, even though he's, an older gentleman, but eventually, somebody's got to take his place. Will they fill his shoes? That's a totally different conversation. That's a totally different conversation. Who's going to fill their shoes? That's a great country song. You should look that one up. But my favorite Buffett quote that I think about a lot in my day-to-day life as an advisor, um, is him talking about when others are greedy, be fearful, and when others are fearful, be greedy. And I think that that plays a lot into our thinking in terms of when everybody's running away from the market based on some bad news or some pessimism or bad announcement or whatever else. That, in my opinion, those are the times to pick up the discounts. And when you look at the averages over time, those purchases that were made in the discount periods when others were fearful, when the markets were fearful, are the times you look back and go, I'm glad I bought at that time, or near the bottom or around the bottom or whatever that short-term thing was. Because if you're playing the long game, those things are to your benefit as an investor, in my opinion. So, um, another thing that Buffett has always talked about um, is the book, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Um, I became interested in, the investment worlds and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs and all that sort of stuff when I was young because I would hear my dad talk about it. And when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, he bought me the book, The Intelligent Investor, and I read it. And, the 10 or 11-year-old's vocabulary probably isn't up to par to kind of understand a lot of the terminology in The Intelligent Investor, but I read it and understood it. And then I'd get a little bit older and reread it again and reread it again and reread it again. And I think it is the ultimate book if you've got a child who's interested, or maybe you're an adult and you're just interested in kind of just having a better understanding of how this whole system of the stock market works. The Intelligent Investor is a very good book just to help you get a good grasp and have a good baseline understanding and a good framework for how you think about markets, and not only how you think about them, but how you think about them affects how you behave in the markets. And the most successful investors that we've seen, in history have been people who don't really do things emotionally. They don't do things emotionally. They stick with, a philosophy and a plan, and they ride it out, and they don't get thrown off by emotion. And I think that a really good, strong philosophy is the only real way to overpower human emotion. Because even, I have a very uh, principled, convicted philosophy when it comes to investments and financial planning. But if I didn't have that, I could see myself very easily being thrown off by emotion because when, markets go down 10, 15% because of, a tariff announcement or something like that, it's very easy to go, this hasn't been done in, a long, long time since, the late 1800s. And there's no way to know how markets are going to play out. Well, look at what we've seen. The market has pretty much recovered from our April 4th tariff announcement from where we stand right now. Now, we're not near the all-time highs, but from that period of time, we have recovered. But in that moment, it can seem scary. But if you don't have a philosophy to stand on, and it's like the passage in the Bible that talks about the house that's built on the sand versus the house that's built on the solid rock. The investing with no philosophy is the house built on the sand, and that will crumble and erode, versus the house built on the rock stands on solid ground. And so I think that The Intelligent Investor is a great book for either, you as an adult, or if you have a child that's interested in markets, is a great place to start. I've got it. This bookshelf goes wall to wall. So oh, here it is. I always keep it close. Here it is, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. It's um it's an amazing book. The Buffett quote on the front is by far the best book on investing ever written. So if one of the best investors of all time tells you that there's the best book on investing ever written, might want to check it out. Some of my favorite quotes from the book, I actually wrote down, which was people who invest make money for themselves. People who speculate make money for the brokers because they get paid on transactions. So that's 100% true. I'm not a broker. I'm a registered investment advisor. So, the brokers, the big brokerages, they make money on transactions. And so the people who invest for the long term, they're a value-based investor. They make money for themselves over the long term. The people who speculate and try to jump in, jump out, do backflips, twists and turns, behind the back passes in the market, whatever you're trying to do, dribble between your legs with NASDAQ or something or some penny stock. Those people make money for the brokers, in my opinion. So my other favorite quote has to do with inflation. I hate inflation. I think inflation is one of the worst things for the American family. and it's gotten out of control with our government spending. We need more stringent, more ardent people in our legislative branch who have the power of the purse, but they don't want to wield that power for good things. We need more, the people, it's gotten completely out of hand. We need more people who take that role far more seriously of the power of the purse and our spending in Congress. Um, I just saw the other day where in this, new spending bill that the Republican Congress is working on, they're not going to codify the Doge cuts. So it's just kind of a one-time little savings. That's not really making some sort of fundamental change for the country. It's not doing it at all. It doesn't reduce our spending at all, which doesn't help our deficit for the long term. We need to be playing the long game in our country. And I saw where it was Congressman Thomas Massey from Northern Kentucky, where I grew up. He was the one who kind of called it out and said, "Hey, Speaker Johnson is not including these, Doge cuts on some of these frivolous spending items in the spending bill." So that means that when the parties change again, and if the Democratic Party's philosophy is to include those things in spending, or they get the majority of the House, those things that were frivolously spent on will just creep their way back in, and we will further compound our inflation and spending problem. But from the Intelligent Investor, the quote about inflation I thought was hilarious was, and I think it's so true. It's so true. Benjamin Graham said 20 years ago, it took two adults to carry $10 worth of groceries. And today, a 5-year-old can do it. So he said, I guess Americans are getting stronger. Now, the joke there is obviously Americans aren't getting so much stronger that a 5-year-old can carry what used to take two adults. The point is $10 worth of groceries used to buy, so much stuff that it took two adults to carry it. Nowadays, at the time he wrote this, a 5-year-old could carry $10 worth of groceries because that $10 doesn't go near as far. You look at it today, I can even just think, even in my adulthood, looking back over, the past 10 years of what, $100 would get you at a grocery store for a college student versus what it gets you today. I mean, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And unless you have some sort of way to increase your income to outpace the rising cost of living, you're in a very tough spot. And I truly don't think that our legislators understand how the majority of America is living. And so I think until we get a more stringent, focused, power of the purse people in our Congress, we're not going to see that improve at all. And everyday Americans who don't have a voice that can be, louder than the PACs, then it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse until we absolutely have no middle class whatsoever. Till we have absolutely no middle class whatsoever. Maybe that is that the goal of somebody who's driving all this? I don't know. I don't know, but I find it pretty tone deaf that that's the way things continue to go. So thanks for tuning in today to TD Talks. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and I'll see you soon. The views and opinions voiced in this podcast are solely the views and opinions of Taylor Davis and do not reflect the views or opinions of any other entity or organization. The content provided is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be specific investment advice for any individual. Please consult with your financial advisor to address your unique circumstances. Taylor Davis does not provide legal or tax advice.